when I watched this video, it just made my blood boil. Welcome to my channel, Outspoken Samantha. If you are new here, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for the support. On my channel, I like to give my opinion in perspective on things that are happening today, things that I think actually matter to everyday people, especially those of us trying to raise kids in the insanity known as today's society. I do like to talk about current events and politics, so please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below and share it with others. Also, be sure you are subscribed. Help me to grow this channel and hopefully reach more people that value logic, reason, and sanity. Also, be sure to find me on Rumble under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So let's talk about Katy Perry from American Idol. Now, if you're not overly familiar with American Idol, it has been around for a really long time. I remember when it first started, one of their first winner, I believe, was Kelly Clarkson, and another one of their more famous winners that we are all aware of is Carrie Underwood. It's gone through several rounds of judges over the last couple of decades. That we've had for the last few years have been our Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, and Luke Bryan. They were doing auditions in Texas, I want to say in the Houston area, I'm not entirely sure, but this guy showed up to do an audition, and he's 21, 22 years old, and in the process of his audition, he came out with this story that he was a survivor of a mass shooting that took place at his high school in 2018. This was at Santa Fe High School, which is in the Houston area. And as he is telling his story, Katy Perry just bursts into tears, just absolutely loses it. And she is just overcome with emotion, and she starts yelling about how the government has failed us, that this kid shouldn't be in the position that he's in, to have so much heartache and tragedy behind his audition and behind his music. And she's sobbing, and Lionel Richie is tearing up, and I didn't really see what Luke Bryan was doing. I think he was trying to comfort Katy, and it was just this whole display.
What you doing, Katy?
Our country has failed us.
Facts.
This is not okay. You should be singing here because you love music.
It's true.
Not because you had to go through that.
I agree.
You didn't have to lose 8 friends. I hope that you remind people that we have to change. Because you know what? I'm scared too.
It's terrible, Katy.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to minimize the emotion that she's feeling right there, because obviously anytime something like this happens, it is devastating. I remember when the Sandy Hook shooting happened in 2013, and I was in my car and I was listening to the news reports on the radio, and I was just sobbing, just by myself alone in my car, just feeling utterly devastated for the parents, for the community, for what just happened. You know, and at the time I was living in Colorado, so thousands of miles away, so I know that I was not alone in that emotion, and that this was a feeling amongst everybody with a soul across the country, regardless of your political affiliation and regardless of what your position is on gun control or the Constitution or any of these things, that as a human being, your response is, this is tragic and this is absolutely not something that any kid should have to worry about. So it's not her feelings that are the problem. I believe that she feels emotion about this. I believe that she is troubled by this, and I believe that she truly has compassion for this individual standing in front of her and the things that he has had to go through and all of the people that he lost. But it's the basis for the emotion that I find infuriating. This belief that guns are the problem always comes from people like Hollywood celebrities and government officials and every other kind of wealthy elitist who literally have armed security wherever they go. They have absolutely no grasp on reality. They have no self-awareness whatsoever to the fact that they are living, breathing, walking examples of hypocrisy, and that it's obvious to everyone else that they truly believe in one set of standards for themselves and another set of standards for us peasants. She and people like Lionel Richie, who are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, don't have to care if what they're promoting is based in reality, because it doesn't affect them whatsoever. Whether or not they believe the narrative, it's not going to impact whether or not they're safe. It's, you know, if they push anti-Second Amendment policies, no one around them is going to be disarmed. They can say guns are the problem all they want, and it's not going to impact their lives whatsoever, and they don't have to look in the faces of everyday people and determine if those policies are harmful or not. They just don't have to. I would bet that Katy Perry has absolutely no idea what happens in Chicago on a daily basis and all of these big cities. I bet she has absolutely no idea what Los Angeles and Portland looks like, that there are people laying on the streets suffering every single day. I bet she has no idea that in Chicago just a few days ago, a 13-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 19-year-old and a 1-year-old were all shot as a result of gang violence. I bet she has no idea what's happening at the southern border, that there are thousands of people being trafficked across the border every single day. I bet she's never listened to a Border Patrol agent describe the horrific abuse and torture that women and children are facing every single day because our government refuses to get our border under control, and the border's now being essentially controlled by drug cartels. I bet Katy Perry has no idea that there are numerous school districts now reporting that more than half of their students cannot read or write at grade level, and because of their failed education, that their hopes for a successful future are essentially being ripped out from under them. I'm going to bet that she has no idea what's really happening in East Palestine, Ohio right now, that there are thousands of people suffering because of this massive chemical explosion, that have been displaced out of their homes, that are going to have to leave everything behind, that they're going to be experiencing severe medical issues probably for the rest of their lives from this chemical exposure. And if she has heard anything about it, I would bet that she believes the EPA's narrative that the air and water are safe. And I bet she doesn't know that these people have pretty much been ignored by our government, that the assistance that should go to them is actually being sent overseas to another country to assist and help their people and make them feel safe. I bet that she has no idea that there are thousands of young adults between the ages of like 18 to 40 that are dying because of fentanyl poisoning every single week. In the Houston area, the same area that this kid is from, in the year 2022, the federal agents removed 7.8 million doses of fentanyl from their streets, which is enough to kill every single person in that metropolitan area. Every kid in every school, their parents, their grandparents, their friends, their peers, their teachers, everyone around them. It's like watching one of those end of the world movies where this catastrophic thing just like lands in the middle of the city and wipes everything out. That is what they just took off the streets, and that is only the stuff that they have been able to apprehend. That's not counting everything that is making it out into the communities and is taking the lives of, like I said, thousands of people every single week. So if you really want to see how us peasants are dealing with government failures and the things that we really do have to face, have a look at this.
The year Caleb was born, 2000, there were 20,000 drug-related deaths. And the year they died, it was 5 times as many. And I appreciate you using the term fentanyl poisoning, because that's what it was. It wasn't an overdose. They had no idea that they were doing anything that could kill them. And it's because fentanyl got into this country. I heard this man over here from the Cato Institute, talk about, well, it's because of demand. What I'm hearing him say is they asked for it. What the hell? Seriously? Are you kidding me? We need to protect our children. They didn't ask for that. This wasn't demand. They wanted the fentanyl. They didn't want fentanyl. They thought they were getting Percocets. Okay? He's absolutely clueless. Like, total disconnect from what's happening. And to say, oh, let's just give them strips or let's give them rehab. Well, you know what? My kids got my son Caleb went to federal rehab. It was a flap house. It wasn't real rehab. You're wasting your money where you're sending it. I'm telling you, it's a waste of money because it wasn't real rehab. And the government paid for their drugs under COVID. They encouraged them not to stay home. All these young people in our support groups, we all talk about it, how they paid for their drugs with the federal funds under COVID, that gave them incentive not to work. Healthy young people.
This woman, her name is Rebecca Kissling, and she lost both of her sons to fentanyl poisoning. And she is literally begging for the government to do something about it, to close the borders, to keep this stuff from getting into the country, because this is not an isolated event. This is not a single story. This is happening every single day. I haven't seen people like Katy Perry and Lionel Richie do anything essentially to help people that are suffering. They are never going to ask the question, what would lead somebody to do something like this? What would make a teenager so hurt and feel so completely lost and hopeless that they felt that something so drastic is the only answer that they have? And she doesn't see video after video on social media every single day of the bullying and the violence that is happening in so many schools across the country. She has no idea that gun violence, while yes, it is absolutely tragic, is an exceedingly rare occurrence in schools, especially in comparison to the other kinds of violence that kids are facing just walking through the hallway, trying to get from math to English, as they watch their peers literally beat the crap out of each other, as they're jumped and assaulted for no reason, as they see their classmates and their teachers brutalized. I have spoken to so many school counselors, and they cannot even begin to describe the absolute mental health, depression, anxiety crisis that kids are facing right now. The pain and the brokenness in children and teens is tangible. It's being caused by broken homes, by absent parents, by drug addiction, by failing academics, by bullying, by just feeling hopeless and depressed. And it's happening as a result of living in a society that has demeaned and belittled the importance of having a strong family foundation. This society that constantly stokes things like racism and animosity, that perpetuates this idea that the world is going to end and people that have certain skin colors are their enemies. And our youth are being bombarded every single day from all of their social media apps and platforms with messages of violence, crime, destruction, and devastation. And just essentially all they see every day, all day, is that their world is falling apart. So yes, what happened to this individual standing right in front of you is unimaginable. And I can't even imagine the pain that he has had to deal with over the last several years. But I would bet that if you asked him if he knows anybody that has died from fentanyl poisoning or from suicide in those 5 years since that, very tragic event, I would bet that he would be able to say yes. I guarantee he has lost friends, probably more friends, as a result of what is happening in today's America in ways that have absolutely nothing to do with firearms. And the message on top of all that we're sending to these students is that the only time their pain and suffering matters is when one of their peers actually does snap and does something drastic like this, just snaps one day and shows up and decides to target completely innocent people. That is the only way that they can get attention to the struggles that they are facing. Even then, the only instance that gets attention is what this one individual did. But if they really wanted to help, Katy Perry would have looked in the face of this individual, of this young man, and said, what can we do to help your peers? What can we do to help kids in school right now where this could be a danger to them? What can we do to help kids feel better about the future, to feel better about the world around them, to not get to such an extreme place of hopelessness? What can we do to foster better environments for children? What resources do you need? What help do you need? I send my kids to public school every day, and I try not to think about it too often, but obviously I'm aware that the chances of something like this happening in one of their schools is real. I understand that, but the threat that I'm worried about, or the danger that I'm worried about, is that there's a kid or kids wandering around their school hallways feeling completely unseen, feeling completely alone, or going through something at home that is just building up this resentment and anger in them, and that it's not being addressed. And if we don't address these things with these kids that are feeling unseen, then the likelihood of something more tragic happening goes up significantly. And until people like Katy Perry and Lionel Richie are willing to have this conversation and actually acknowledge the reality of what is going on in the world around you, it makes these tears not only empty, it makes them insulting. Please give this video a thumbs up. Leave your thoughts on this topic in the comments below. Also, be sure you are subscribed, hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time I post a video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.